This conference will now be recorded.
Yes, he is joining.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
व्योमेश भाई
बोलो सर.
आज स्क्रीन पर half screen is blocked by this GoToMeeting app. How can I complete view
So
of my
what you
screen?
can have is you have this option of view everyone on the top. If you can just see that. You can just click on that and just have hide everyone or active cameras or who's talking rather.
Okay.
Instead of everyone, you can have who's talking or and camera view. You can adjust the camera view top, left, bottom, right, wherever.
Okay. Because my screen is getting blocked by this
Yeah.
app.
So you can change these view settings. You can change these view settings.
Setting.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, yes, Mayur.
Yes, Mayur.
Yes, sir. Sorry for the late.
No, you are on time.
Yeah. No, I was attending some other session, so that's why.
Concurrent audit. Yes, yes. You know.
Yeah. That's why. Yeah.
So Dharan sorted.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Could you be a bit louder, Dharanji?
Still not audible?
Yeah, it is audible, but then I guess mic का थोड़ा है. I don't know. व्योमेश भाई, आपको कुछ लग रहा है क्या?
नहीं अभी
No,
ठीक है.
no,
अभी
Mayur
better.
bhai. Dharan bhai will be
Okay, fine.
louder in webinar. He is silent now. तूफान से पहले का सन्नाटा ये.
Actually, I got a lot of requests from all over the Dharan bhai. I would like to tell you that a lot of people from other regions are also willing to join your session. So I have sent links. They are asking for the link and registration details. So it's a great thing for the branch and for the speaker also.
Thank you, sir.
And Dharan bhai, especially I also got some WhatsApp messages from the young members. They were saying that you have selected a very good speaker. He used to teach us in IPCC classes.
I used to teach. Yes,
Got
I
many
remember.
messages. Yes.
Yeah. From Chennai also we have participants, Dharan bhai.
Oh.
Now we had one from Delhi. So can we start?
Yes, please. Dharan, all okay?
I'm okay.
Should we start?
Yeah. Yes, Mayur.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, fine. Hello, good evening, everyone. Myself, C. Amar Jain, Secretary of Kalyan Dumli branch. Welcome you all. Today is the third session of Direct Tax series. Then topic is reassessment under income tax law. This session will be conducted by Advocate Dharan Gandhi. He has also earlier conducted sessions with Kalyan Dumli branch and Kalyan CP also, and I was one of the attendees. And I must tell you that the session was very much helpful and knowledgeable for all of us. So I wish you a happy learning. I now request our chairman to say some few words. Over to you, Ankit.
Yes, thank you, Mayur bhai. Good afternoon, all of you. A warm welcome from the Kalyan Dombli branch. Friends, today is our third session on reassessment by CA turned advocate Dharan Gandhi. Friends, I am very happy to announce that from yesterday till 4th, we are daily having webinars. Yesterday we had on international tax, today it's on direct tax, tomorrow again on the representation before appellate authorities by Abhishek Tilakji. On first, on second we have on international tax again. On third we have a special session dedicated for women. On fourth we have how to make money in stock market. So daily our branch is having webinars. Secondly, we are getting a very good response from our members regarding the quality of webinars. Today also I got lot of feedback for our speaker. The speaker has not yet started speaking, but I got very positive feedback that he had given a joint development agreement seminar on joint development agreement in Kalyan CP study circle, and it was applauded by all the members. Also I got request from the young members that the selection of chairman is good, that he is selecting a good speaker, because Dharan bhai used to teach in the classes also. So with this, I request Dharan bhai to please start this session. I wish all of you a very happy learning. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Ankit bhai, Mayur bhai, and other respected members of the branch and other ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, a very good evening to one and all. I hope everybody is safe and sound. Everybody is staying back home, and what better time to update ourselves and keep ourselves uh, aware about the things happening in the professional side. So I would like to thank the Kalyan Dubili branch, Yomesh bhai, for inviting me to share my views on this topic of reassessment under income tax law. So this is an evergreen topic because every year there are new reassessment notices. Plus, this is an ever evolving topic because every time we get to know new and new judgments resulting in the evolution of law in this area of income tax. So it is important for us to keep ourselves updated about the reassessment proceedings under the Income Tax Act. Before going into the main topic, first understand the little background of the concept of self-assessment. The Income Tax Act, the Government of India trusts its citizens. It has a faith over its taxpayers, and therefore the concept of self-assessment, which means that you have to compute your own income, you have to determine your advance tax liability, pay the advance tax. You have to file your own return of income. You have to show your return of income in your return, how much tax is payable, and you have to pay your own self-assessment tax. The government trusts you, and the number of returns which are taken up for scrutiny are quite less. It is less than 1%. We have the assessment scheme under the Income Tax Act. Less than 1% return are taken up for scrutiny. So they have summary assessment under 143(1), which is in the nature of intimation. We have scrutiny assessment 143(3) and 144. Assessment in case of search in case of section 153 of the Income Tax Act. Plus the reassessment which we are going to deal with in this presentation. The assessment are subject matter of revision under section 263 if the department is of the view that the assessment order passed by the officer is erroneous and prejudicial to the interest of the revenue. They can revise the assessment.
तो super
And
है
assessee feels
एक
that
वेब मीटिंग है
if the assessee feels that the assessment order contains something which needs to be rectified, or some claim which he wants to make and he has not made, he can opt for a revision under section 264, and the principal commissioner has to pass an order which is not prejudicial to the assessee. Further, we have something called as rectification of mistake apparent from record, and errors can be rectified under section 154. What is important is concept of finality to assessment. Supreme Court in as old judgment as Parshuram Pottery 106 ITR has held that there should be a point of finality in all legal proceedings. The stay issued should not be reactivated beyond a particular stage. Thus, there should be end to every legal proceeding. You should not be allowed to reopen after in the lapse of substantial time, and therefore you will see under the Income Tax Act, power to reopen the assessment is maximum up to 6 years, and in some case beyond 6 years. So this is very important, the concept of finality to assess. With this background, if we move forward, what are the relevant provisions under the Income Tax Act dealing with the reassessment proceedings? 147, 148, up to 153. It is very important to understand that each section has some or the other condition, prerequisite, or essential requirements for reopening of the assessment. Each of the section acts as a check on the abuse of the power by the department to reopen the assessment, and therefore if any of the condition is not fulfilled, the same is sufficient to get the reassessment proceeding quashed, either by filing a writ petition or by challenging the same during the course of appellate proceedings. So this is the scheme of reassessment. A simple questions: at what stage can the income be reassessed? In case you have not filed a return of income, yes, it is subject matter of reassessment. Where you have filed a return of income, but there is only a summary assessment under 143(1), in that case also it can be reopened. If there is an earlier scrutiny assessment 143(3), 144, still there can be a reassessment. If there is no earlier scrutiny assessment but an earlier reassessment under 148, then can be a reassessment proceeding. If there are more than 2 earlier assessments, still nothing stops the department to reopen the assessment if other conditions are getting fulfilled. However, if an assessment proceeding is going on, at that point of time they cannot initiate a reassessment proceeding for the very same assessment, because if they want to make any addition, they can do so in the assessment proceeding itself. There is no need to reopen the assessment. So that is what our courts have held, that where the assessment or reassessment proceedings are pending, which are not completed, you cannot reopen the assessment. The basic section 147, which is a jurisdictional section under which the AO assumes power to reopen the assessment. Let us read the section. If the assessing officer has reason to believe that any income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment, then what he can do is he may assess or reassess such income and also any other income which is chargeable to tax and has escaped assessment and which comes to his notice subsequently. Each word in this section has to be given a proper meaning. There are different elements in this section. We are going to deal with each element in this section. Firstly, who must have a reason to believe? It's the assessing officer. So for example, there is a search in case of Mr. Praveen Kumar Jain in Mumbai by an officer who is situated in Mumbai. Based on that search proceeding, they found out that a party in Delhi has taken some accommodation entry from such person called as Praveen Kumar Jain. Can the officer in Mumbai initiate reassessment proceeding of the person based in Delhi? The answer is no. Similarly, if a person is assessed by ITO, say for example 2-3, then in that case his reassessment proceeding cannot be initiated by his neighbor, that is ITO 2-4. It is not valid. And there are judgments to this effect that non-jurisdictional AO cannot form reason to believe. We may go ahead. The AO sometimes, or in fact most of the times, receives information from outside source that your assessee, in your assessee's case, there is an escapement of income. So for example, the Mumbai assessing officer who had searched Praveen Jain, he has no power to initiate assessment proceeding in case of the Delhi person. So what he can do is he can pass on the information to the assessing officer of the person in Delhi. So that Delhi officer has now got an information from a Mumbai officer, and he can initiate the reassessment proceeding, but is subject to certain conditions. Firstly, AO has to apply his mind to the information received and form a reason to believe. It has been held by Supreme Court in case of Chugammal Rajpal versus Chalia. AO has to form his own belief. It cannot be by way of a borrowed satisfaction. It cannot be at the diktat of a superior authority or some other department of the income tax. Similarly, he has to verify the information received with the records of the assessing, and then after a holistic appraisal of the fact, he has to form a reason to believe that income has escaped assessment, which gives us two important propositions. A reassessment cannot be by way of borrowed satisfaction. It cannot be at the behest of some superior authority. Merely based on the information received from a particular officer or a particular department, he cannot reopen the assessment. He has to apply his mind. It cannot be mechanical in nature, and therefore these are some of these safeguards or jurisdictional requirement is required. Just to give an example, the AO of Delhi party received information from Mumbai officer that the Delhi SSC has received accommodation entry from Praveen Kumar Jain. This information which he has received, he has to verify such information with the facts of the Delhi SSC's case. He has to verify the records. If need be, he has to call for further information by issuing summons. He has to verify कि ऐसा कुछ entry है कि नहीं उसके books. It is quite possible this may be a wrong information or some wrong assessee must have been caught into the picture. In such case, he has to verify everything. He has to verify the assessment records, and then he has to record reason to believe that income has escaped assessment. To take this case further, information is received mainly from two types of units of the income tax. One is the audit unit, other is the investigation wing. Firstly, the audit unit. Just like how a chartered accountant carries out the audit of his client, similarly in the income tax department, a case which is scrutinized is again audited by the audit wing of the income tax department. They verify whether the AO has conducted the scrutiny in correct manner, whether he has missed any point, and if he has missed any point, he brings that point to the notice of the assessing officer, and the assessing officer has to issue a notice by reopening the assessment. However, it is not very simple, because our courts, Supreme Court, Bombay High Court, Gujarat High Court, all has held that if an assessment has been reopened merely based on the information of the audit wing, then the same is not supposed to be a correct reopening of the assessment, and the courts have caused such a reassessment proceeding. So therefore, because in such case mostly what happens is the AO must have applied his mind, or in such case there must not be any failure to disclose. However, mere receipt of information from audit wing is not sufficient to reopen. AO has to apply his mind and form his own reason to believe. Similarly, in case of investigation wing, the AO has to apply his mind and form a reason to believe that income has escaped assessment. Generally, in case of investigation link, like what has happened in case of Praveen Kumar Jain or Mukesh Chokshi, the courts are quite lenient with the department, and they have in fact tried to cover up some of the mistakes of the department if the reassessment proceeding is based on the information from investigation wing. Nevertheless, courts have held that you have the assessing officer has to form his own reason to believe. He has to apply his mind, verify the information, and then record the reasons. So the first aspect is AO, your jurisdictional AO, must have a reason to believe that income has escaped assessment. So what the AO must have is reason to believe. The reason to believe has been very well explained by the Bombay High Court and Supreme Court. I have just brought out the paras here. I'll just read one para from the Supreme Court judgment, Calcutta Discount Company. Expression reason to believe postulates belief and the existence of reason for that belief. Now, this word reason to believe has two words. One is reason and second is belief. There must be a belief that income has escaped assessment. Not only that, that belief must be backed by a reason why he has formed such belief. That is what has been stated by Supreme Court. The expression reason to believe postulates belief and existence of reason for that belief. The belief must be held in good faith. It cannot be a mere pretense. The expression does not mean a purely subjective satisfaction of the ITO. The forum of decision as to existence of reasons and the belief is not in the mind of ITO. Expression therefore predicates that the ITO holds the belief induced by existence of reasons for holding such belief. It contemplates existence of reasons on which the belief is founded, and not merely a belief in the existence of reason, including the inducing the belief. In other words, the ITO must, on information at its disposal, believe that income has been underassessed. Such a belief, be it said, may not be based on mere suspicion. So therefore, there should be a belief that income has escaped assessment, and this belief must be backed by some reason as to why the AO has come to such belief, which give rise to these propositions. There cannot be a reassessment merely on the ground of suspicion. At this stage of reopening the assessment, AO has to only form a reasonable belief and not a conclusive finding. He cannot reopen an assessment for verification purposes. For example, the assessing officer has got a information that assessee has taken unsecured loan from 5 parties. He wants to verify such unsecured loan, and therefore he forms a reason to believe that income has escaped assessment. This is not permissible because you need to have reason to believe that income has escaped assessment. You don't need a reason to believe for purpose of making further verification or inquiry. Similarly, say for example, if you are having an information that assessee in a particular year has invested in a property, therefore to verify the source of such investment, he needs to carry out the reassessment procedure. Again, this is not permissible. What AO is trying to do is to make fishing and rowing inquiry, and he is not trying to record a reason that income has escaped assessment. I have invested in the property, but that property is my income or it is from my undisclosed source. He is not coming out anywhere. What he is trying to do is he is trying to make an inquiry or verification, which the courts have held is not permissible. Yes. So the AO must have reason to believe that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. Courts, Supreme Court in Lakshmani Mewal Das, very old judgment, has held that there should be a live link or nexus between the reason to believe and income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. If AO has received an information to the effect that assessee has received certain money from person A, and therefore he forms a belief that this receipt is in the nature of income which the assessee has not offered to tax. Therefore, according to him, income has escaped assessment. Now, in this case, if the receipt which the assessee has received from the other party, if that amount is not in the nature of income, then the reassessment proceeding falls. Thus, there should be some income chargeable to tax which has escaped assessment so that he can reopen the assessment. The next example, which is a very common case, is AR information of cash deposit. Many times we see that the assessment is reopened on the ground that the AO has received information to the effect that the assessee has deposited cash in his bank account, saving account, or fixed deposit. He has filed return, he has shown meager income, and therefore he says, I have a reason to believe that income has escaped assessment. Now, what is his information? That I have deposited some cash. How does that got any link or nexus with the fact that my income has escaped assessment? The point is, there is a cash deposit, whether that cash deposit is from an undisclosed source, or you have received a statement from a third party who says that I have given him cash, he has not shown it as his income. There is no such connection or link. Just there is a cash deposit, and therefore income chargeable to tax as escaped assessment. Whether that cash deposit constitutes the income of the assessee is nowhere to be found in the reasons recorded. Thus, based on such AR information, the courts have held that reassessment proceeding cannot be initiated. Similarly, prior to section 56(2)(10) and 56(2)(7), there were cases where the assessments were reopened on the ground that what you have invested or what you have constructed and the fair market value of property is different. So suppose you have invested 1 lakh in the property, but the fair market value of property is 2 lakh rupees. Therefore, they form a reason to believe that income has escaped assessment on the assumption or presumption that the balance 1 lakh rupee has been paid out of books of account after your undisclosed income. In such cases, merely because there is a difference between the fair market value of property purchased and the actual costs incurred, the courts have held that in such case assessment cannot be reopened. Though they can reopen an assessment on the basis of an illegally obtained material. For example, they come to your place for a search. In the search proceeding, they find some material. You challenge the search proceeding. The search proceeding is quashed on the ground that the search is not a legal search. Therefore, search proceeding quashed. They cannot initiate proceeding under section 153 of the Act. However, the material which they have obtained in such illegal search can be used to reopen an assessment under section 147 of the Act. Now, I'll just give two examples to draw some points. Firstly, AO in his reasons recorded states that as per the information received, assessee has received so much income. However, assessee has not filed his return of income, and therefore I have a reason to believe that income has escaped assessment. However, the fact of matter is that in this case, assessee has filed his return of income. In such case, if the grounds or the reasons are based on some erroneous information, some incorrect basis, the courts have held that assessment cannot be reopened. Or for example, the assessing officer receives information that assessee has received share application money of 5 crore from Mr. X. However, during the course of assessment proceeding on verification, assessing officer finds that there is no such income or share application money received by the person. Or take another example. The assessing officer receives information to the effect that A Private Limited has received unsecured loan from Mr. X. But A Private Limited shows that I have not received an unsecured loan. It is my other group company, AB Private Limited, which has received the loan. Thus, the reassessment proceeding is based on incorrect information on the basis of non-existent ground or a wrong ground, and therefore in such cases the courts have held that in this cases reassessment based on erroneous information or incorrect basis cannot be allowed. In an assessment proceeding, the AO calls for information. He verifies the information. He is satisfied, and he has not made any adjustment. For example, he has called for the information that whether your rental income received from letting out of property is charged to tax by the assessee as business income. He verifies it. He finds yes, it's okay. After 2 years, there is a change in assessing officer. The other assessing officer verifies the record. He finds that no, this income should be taxed as income from house property and not as business income, and therefore he reopens the assessment based on the very same issue, based on the very same facts. In such case, the courts have held that merely on the basis of change of opinion, a reassessment proceeding cannot be initiated. Just because you have a different view does not mean you can reopen the proceedings. Very settled principle, Supreme Court in case of Calcutta Discount Calvinator have held that a reassessment is not permissible on the basis of change of opinion. Now, if you see the provisions of Section 147 of the Income Tax Act, there is no such condition prescribed either in 147 or 148 to the effect that you cannot reopen on the ground of change of opinion. However, the court has self-imposed this condition. This is a judge-made law because they want to give the finality to any assessment, any legal issue or assessment proceeding, which we have discussed earlier. So therefore, merely on the basis of change of opinion, an assessment cannot be reopened. How do you prove that there is a change of opinion, or how do you prove that originally AO has applied his mind to the same issue? So if in the original assessment proceeding there is a notice issued under section 142(1) saying please give details of your income from house property or income from letting out of house property, you furnish the information, you show that this income has been offered to tax as business income in your return submission. In the assessment order, there is no discussion about this aspect. Therefore, this demonstrates that AO has asked a relevant query, you have replied to the relevant query, and therefore, this is a case where the issue has already gone scrutiny on the very same issue, on the very same facts. AO cannot reopen the assessment procedure. Similarly, certain other issues which are coming out from your computation of income, your balance sheet, your P&L account, your tax audit report, even if AO has not asked you any query, still there are cases that such issues one has to presume deemed application of mind, because computation of income is the most basic document, or for that matter form 3CD is a very basic document, and AO is presumed to have gone through everything and has applied his mind to everything. So we have the judgment that if you have disclosed properly in your computation of income or form 3CD or balance sheet or P&L account, in that case presumed as AO has applied his mind because these are the very basic documents, and in such case AO cannot reopen the assessment. How reasons are to be recorded? Very beautiful judgment of the Bombay High Court in Hindustan Lever versus ACIT 268 ITR 332. Very simple. The basic fundamental of reassessment proceeding, or the very basic document of reassessment proceeding, is the reasons recorded by the assessing officer. Based on these reasons recorded, the courts will scrutinize whether the reassessment is proper or not. So AO has got information from someone, AO has applied his mind, AO has found there is an escapement of income. Everything has to come in the reasons recorded. These reasons recorded cannot be changed, cannot be supplemented, no addition, no deductions can be made from such reasons recorded. So I'll just read 2-3 lines from this paragraph. It is for the assessing officer to disclose and open his mind through reasons recorded. It is for him to put his opinion on record in black and white. The reasons so recorded should be unambiguous and should not suffer from any vagueness. The reasons recorded must disclose his mind. The reasons are the manifestation of the mind of the assessing officer. Reasons recorded should be explanatory and should not keep the assessee guessing for the reasons. The reasons provide link between the conclusion and evidence. The reasons recorded must be based on evidence. So this is a very important document while analyzing how to argue in case of reassessment cases. One has to, in order to challenge the reassessment ground, one has to verify the reasons recorded. What is there in the reasons recorded? Is there any mistake in the reasons recorded? Is such mistake fatal? If yes, then simply on that ground the entire reassessment proceeding can fall down. Yes. Now if you have seen section 147 as well as explanation 3 to section 147, one finds that the assessing officer can reopen an assessment for a issue, and he can assess or reassess such income and any other income which comes to his notice. Thus, if a reassessment is on the ground that assessee has taken bogus bills and he has booked bogus purchases, while analyzing this issue, he can also make any other addition like an addition of unsecured loan under section 68 or disallowance of any expenses or disallowance of interest expenditure, etc., etc. Thus, not only the issue in respect of which assessment has been reopened, but also any other issue can be subject matter of addition while a reassessment proceed. Just to give you an example, the assessing officer records the reason to believe that income has escaped assessment in on the ground that assessee has deposited cash and such cash is undisclosed income of the assessee. He reopens the assessment, and during the reassessment proceeding, assessee submits all the documents, shows him, no, see, I have deposited cash out of my past savings. This I have shown in my cash account, and everything is proper and valid. AO says, okay, your cash account is proper, but I have seen that you have received this income or this amount is received by you from Mr. X, which you have not offered to tax. Therefore, I will take that B issue as your income while completing your reassessment proceeding. So what he has done is the original reason on the basis of which assessment has been reopened, no addition is made, but the other information which he got during the reassessment proceeding, that addition is made. Is this permissible? Is the question. The answer is this is not permissible. Our Bombay High Court, Gujarat High Court has held that if the main issue on which the assessment has been reopened, if no addition is made, then he cannot make any addition in respect of any other issue. Just to stretch this forward, AO reopens the assessment on A issue. In the assessment proceeding, AO makes that addition. He also makes addition on B issue. You challenge that order before the CIT appeal. CIT appeal gives you relief qua the first issue, A issue. However, he retains the addition qua the B issue. Thus, after the CIT appeal order, the original issue in respect of which assessment has been reopened is allowed in your favor. And the other issue, which was discovered during the course of reassessment proceeding, that addition is sustained. You challenge that issue before the tribunal, but AO accepts the CIT appeal order in respect of addition on A issue. So now before the tribunal, the only addition which is there is in respect of item number B, which is not the original issue. Original issue is issue number A. Even in such case, the courts have held that since the department has accepted that no addition is required qua A issue, by not challenging the order of CIT appeal, in such case, addition in respect of item number B is supposed to be deleted. Now, there is one important point which one needs to notice. The point which I am trying to make is, comes to his notice subsequently in the course of proceeding. Your case has been reopened because you have taken bogus purchases. The 142(1) notice which has been issued, that notice, AO calls for all sort of information. He calls for your balance sheet, P&L account, explain your share application money, explain your unsecured loan, explain your debtors, explain your creditors. Everything under the sun is, all information is called for by the AO. Is this permissible? Can the AO issue a blanket notice calling for all information and then make addition? In my humble view, AO can only ask for information relating the issue in respect of which assessment has been reopened. And during the course of such verification, if he finds something else, then he can carry out inquiry in respect of that issue and make addition. However, the first notice cannot be a blanket notice, because the words are, it comes to his notice. It is not that he has to dig for issues. It has to come to his notice during the course of reassessment proceeding. So my humble understanding is, he cannot issue a blanket notice. He has to issue notice pertinent to issue in respect of which assessment has been reopened. During that course of verification, if he finds something else, then he can go into the other issues. But directly calling for information in respect of other issue is not permissible. Yes. Now this is one of the most important safeguard provided in the reassessment provisions of the entire chapter, which is first proviso to section 147 of the Act. It provides that where there has been an original assessment under 143.3 or 147, then no reassessment proceeding can be initiated after the expiry of 4 years from the end of relevant assessment. Thus, the concept of finality of assessment, the period is beyond 4 years. If you want to reopen the assessment, then there are some stricter conditions. What are the conditions? Unless any income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment by reason of either failure on the part of the assessee to file a return of income, or failure to disclose fully and truly all material facts necessary for his assessment. So there are two conditions. Firstly, there has to be an earlier assessment under 143.3 or 147. If that is the case, then reassessment beyond 4 years from the end of the relevant assessment year is possible if two conditions are fulfilled. Firstly, there has to be a failure on the part of the assessee to make a return of income. Suppose you have made a return of income, generally it is the case, then the income which has escaped assessment as per the AO should be as a result of failure on the part of the assessee to disclose truly and fully all material facts. If you have disclosed everything during the course of original assessment proceeding, if entire records, entire material qua particular issue is present before the assessing officer during the course of original reassessment proceeding, and if the reassessment proceeding is beyond 4 years, in such case, proviso saves you from any further proceeding. However, they soon realize that this will create a problem, because what happens is, generally the assessee during the course of assessment proceeding will file voluminous submissions. They'll give everything, all vouchers, documents, everything they'll file, and they say, I have submitted everything. Therefore, they inserted this explanation one, which says that production before the AO of account book or other evidence from which material evidence could with due diligence have been discovered by the AO will not necessarily amount to disclosure. Therefore, just because you have produced everything and the AO could with due diligence gather the material evidence, does not mean that there is a full and true disclosure from your side. Supreme Court, in case of Calvinator and New Delhi Television, has, and the Bombay High Court and many other courts have held that if there is no failure to disclose, then no reassessment is possible. Just I'll briefly explain the facts in the case of New Delhi Television Limited versus DCIT, NDTV versus DCIT case. What happened in that case was, the assessee company received certain share application money and share capital in a year. AO verified. No, this is a different case. Sorry. The assessee, in this case, assessee's sister concern received share application money and share capital in a particular year. For receipt of that share application money, assessee company had issued corporate guarantee. So during the course of original assessment proceeding, the assessing officer verified this corporate guarantee transaction and made the TP adjustment, transfer pricing adjustment. The assessment is completed. Now they got an information that the share application money which was received by the sister concern of the SSC company is nothing but the income, undisclosed income of the SSC company, because this is a circular route which the SSC company has adopted. Therefore, they wanted to reopen the assessment to add the share application money in the hands of New Delhi Television Limited company's case. The matter went up to Supreme Court. What did the Supreme Court held? Supreme Court held that the transaction of receipt of share application money by the sister concern was brought to the notice of the officer. Officer was also aware that assessee had issued corporate guarantee. In fact, officer made an transfer pricing adjustment of corporate guarantee issue. In such case, there is no failure on the part of the assessee to disclose truly or fully all material facts. Therefore, no reassessment is required. Second example. Earlier, the assessees were eligible to take benefit under section 10A and 10B of the Income Tax Act. To get an exemption under 10A or 10B, number of conditions were prescribed. So during the course of assessment proceeding, the assessee will generally, the assessing officer will generally call for various details pertaining to this addition, this exemption under section 10A or 10B, and you are bound to submit everything. So if, say for example, you are supposed to fulfill 5 conditions, AO verifies 4 conditions, but you give all information. Now the reassessment proceeding on the ground that on the 5th issue, your conditions are not fulfilled, and therefore there is a case of reassessment because you wrongly claimed exemption under section 10. In those cases, the Bombay High Court has held that facts pertaining to exemption deduction under section 10A were fully and truly disclosed, and therefore reassessment proceeding cannot be initiated. In fact, taking this one step further, courts have held that the reasons recorded, in that reason recorded, AO has to make a statement that there is a failure on the part of the assessee to disclose fully and truly all material facts. If this allegation or this statement is not present, then in that case, the courts have held that such a reassessment proceeding is bad in law because your reasons are incorrect. You're not even made an allegation there is a failure. Very recently, Bombay High Court has held that if there is no allegation of failure, then that is sufficient to quash the reassessment proceeding. Though there are some against judgment wherein the court has held that it is not required to show or state that there is a failure on the part of the assessee. It will be sufficient if from the reasons one can find that AO wants to allege such failure. But today, in my view, this is a very strong argument. If there is no allegation, then that is the end of the matter. This has gone one step further by the Bombay High Court. It is the duty of the assessee to disclose fully and truly all material facts. But the Bombay High Court in case of Raj Bhushan's case has held that the fact that assessee does not disclose the material is not relevant if the AO was otherwise aware of. So if the AO had this information, then also the first proviso will debar the assessing officer from reopening the assessment beyond 4 years. Very interesting case. If I disclose primary facts, if I disclose all the facts, if AO is unable to draw correct inference, if it is a mistake of the AO that he had due to oversight missed a particular point, then the assessee cannot be penalized, because in that case there is no failure from the assessee's side. This has been held by Supreme Court in Parshuram Pottery, Gemini Leather, and very recently NDTV's case. The facts which we had just discussed, assessee demonstrated or produced evidence to the effect that sister concern has received share application money and it had provided corporate guarantee. Now, based on this fact, if the AO could not draw the inference that the sister concern's receipt of share application money is a bogus transaction, then for that mistake, assessee cannot be penalized. This is what the Supreme Court has said. So, for example, in our section 10A examples case, if I produce everything, if there is a lapse on my side, in respect of fulfillment of one of the conditions, but AO erroneously does not record that or did not see that. Today he cannot reopen the assessment on the ground that you have not fulfilled the condition, on the ground that I have disclosed all the facts and it was your responsibility to draw correct inference. I cannot say from these facts you have to draw this inference. It is your job, your duty. If you fail to take the correct inference, then I cannot be penalized. Even in context of explanation 1, the courts have held that explanation 1 need not obliterate the provisions of the first proviso. The explanation 1 is reproduced here. Mere production before the AO of the accounts book or other evidence will not amount to necessary disclosure if, based on such production, the assessing officer could have with due diligence found out the material evidence. Even based on this explanation 1, the court has held that nothing doing if assessee has not made any failure to disclose fully to your material facts, assessee cannot be penalized. However, in one set of case, the court has not accepted that the first proviso to be a genuine safeguard, which is when you receive a fresh information which exposes the falsity of the earlier facts. Just to give an example, in my original assessment proceeding, my receipt of unsecured loan from 3 parties were verified. AO called for confirmation and AO had asked me to prove the identity, genuineness and creditworthiness. I explained everything. AO was satisfied. After 5 years, there was a search in case of one of the party, and that party admitted that he is in the business of providing accommodation entry. Now that new information comes to the possession of my assessing officer, and he therefore records reason to believe that an unsecured loan which you have received is bogus and therefore income has escaped assessment. In this case, though during the course of original assessment proceeding, the same unsecured loan has been verified, that other party has also given confirmation, there is no failure to disclose on my part. Still, since the new information has been received, which demonstrates that this unsecured loan is a bogus entry or accommodation entry, this is a new information which has come to the notice of officer, and this new information exposes the falsity of the earlier fact. Earlier fact is that the loan is genuine. Now that genuineness has been doubted because of the new information which has been received as a result of search in case of that part. In such case, the court has held that if a fresh information is received, then the first proviso cannot come to the assistance of the assessee. One more jurisdictional condition which the court has laid down is having any tangible new material to reopen the assessment. If you read the entire section 147, there is no requirement to have a new tangible material. But the court in so many cases has held that to reopen an assessment, the assessing officer need to have a tangible new material to reopen the assessment. Of course, my reading is this condition of having a new tangible material apply only in case of first proviso, because in case of first proviso, if there is no failure on my part, then the assessing officer has to come out with some new material to reopen the assessment. Section 147 also has a third proviso which states that if any issue is subject matter of appeal before the CIT appeal or tribunal, then on that very issue there cannot be any reopening of the assessment. This is just to avoid multiplicity of proceedings. For example, I have incurred an expenditure of rupees 100. AO in the course of assessment proceeding verifies and says that no 50 is not proper, you have enhanced your expenditure. He disallows 50 rupees. Against that 50 disallowance, I am in appeal before the CIT appeal. Now if the AO wants to reopen the assessment to disallow the balance 50, in this case, I can very well argue that this issue of disallowance of expenditure is subject matter of appeal before the AO, and therefore you cannot reopen the assessment. This is just to avoid the multiple proceedings. Explanation 2 to section 147 provides certain scenarios in respect of which there shall be a deeming fiction that there is an escapement of income. Nothing else is required to be proved. The very first point is very important. Where no return of income has been furnished by the SSC, although during the previous year his income exceeded the maximum amount which is not chargeable to tax. This is very important. Just to give a simple example, a salaried employee, he receives salary of rupees 5 lakh per annum. His employer deducts his TDS, and he is under the impression that since TDS has been deducted, I need not file my return of income. In case of such person, AO has an AIR information that this person has deposited cash in his account, and therefore he has a reason to believe that income has escaped assessment. So frankly speaking, if everything is proper, then merely relying on AIR information of cash deposit, AO cannot reopen the assessment. We have already discussed it. However, in this case, since the person was required to file his return of income and he has not furnished his return of income, as a result of that, even in this case, it will be difficult to argue that reassessment proceeding is bad in law. There is a deemed escapement of income. Nothing else is required to prove. Similarly, there are other cases of deemed escapement where the return of income has been furnished by the SSC, but no assessment has been made, and it is noticed by the AO that the SSC has underassessed the income or has claimed excessive loss, depreciation allowance, or relief in the return, or where the AO assessee has failed to furnish a report in respect of any international transaction, he has failed to furnish a transfer pricing report. In these cases, it shall be deemed that income has escaped assessment. This is the judgment of the Gujarat High Court, which says that if it is a case of deemed escapement, then there is nothing else which is required to be proved. Now, many times queries are raised that if there is an earlier assessment under 143(1), and if that assessment here has been reopened, what are the conditions or what are the prerequisites? Can we argue change of opinion? Can we argue failure to disclose, etc., etc.? The first point is 143(1) is not an assessment, it is only an intimation. AO has not applied his mind, and therefore one cannot argue change of opinion, very well settled by Supreme Court. Similarly, failure to disclose truly and fully, first proviso to section 147 will also not come into picture, because that comes into picture only when there is an earlier assessment under 143(3) or 147. Though there are judgments of the courts wherein they have held that there should be some tangible material to reopen the assessment, Gujarat High Court and Delhi High Court, even in case where the earlier assessment is under section 143(1), and there is an against judgment of the Delhi High Court. My view is, but if there is a 143(1), when the assessing officer has a broader power to reopen the assessment, we cannot argue change of opinion, we cannot take many other arguments. However, what is important is that there should be still a reason to believe that income has escaped assessment. The Bombay High Court, in case of Ankita Chokshi, if I may just read, even in case where the return of income has been accepted by the processing under 143(1) of the Act, reopening of the assessment can be done only when the assessing officer has a reason to believe that income chargeable tax has escaped assessment. Mere fact that return has been processed under 143(1) does not give AO a carte blanche to reopen the assessment. Thus, even in such case, the basic condition of 147 that your assessing officer should have a reason to believe that income has escaped assessment is a prerequisite. So these are, up till now we were only discussing the provisions of section 147. We have seen there are so many conditions which are required to be fulfilled to reopen the assessment. Even if a single condition is violated, courts have held the reassessment proceeding to be bad in law. Now we move on to section 148, which is another section in this context of reassessment proceeding, it requires an assessing officer to serve a notice on the assessee. Notice is served requiring the assessee to furnish a return of income before a specified date. And once a return of income has been filed, the provisions of this act shall apply as if this return was a return required to be furnished under 139. The most important aspect is the last statement. The AO shall, before issuing a notice, record his reason for doing so. Thus, under section 148, AO has to issue a notice requiring the assessee to file a return of income. There is a time limit under section 149, which is, everybody is aware, 6 years. Therefore, if the 6 years is expiring on 31st of March, then the notice under section 148 must leave the hands of the assessing officer on 31st of March. If he has signed the notice on 31st of March, but he has posted such notice on 1st of April, then in such case, the court has held that reassessment is time barred. The very judgment of the Gujarat High Court, wherein the notice itself was posted after 31st of March, the court has held that reassessment is bad in law. Similarly, such notice should be served at the proper address. If it is served at the wrong address, again, the reassessment is bad in law. However, very recently, a Supreme Court in case of IVAN Interactive 418 ITR 662 has held that if the notice is issued as per the PAN database address, merely because assessee is filing return of income for last so many years at some showing some different address, notice is not bad in law. Notice is good because assessee is required to change the address as per the PAN database. If he has not done that, issuance of notice at the address as per the PAN database is valid. This is again a difficult judgment which we have to deal with. Similarly, if a person has died, notice cannot be issued in case to a dead person. It has to be issued to his legal heirs, and the Bombay High Court and Madras High Court has held that notice issued in the name of deceased assessee is not valid in law. In fact, it may so happen that assessing officer is not even aware that a person has died. Still, the Madras High Court has held that there is no provision in the law to intimate the assessing officer that the assessee has died, and therefore, in such case, the court has held that notice issued in the name of a non-existent person is bad in law. Similar finding is given in context of an amalgamation or in case of conversion of company. So, if A company gets amalgamated into B company, A company is no longer in existence, B company is in existence. To reopen the assessment, assessing officer has to issue notice to B company and not to A company. And if the notice or jurisdictional notice is issued in the name of A company, non-existent company, then the same is held to be bad in law. We have seen that all the provisions of the Act apply. Therefore, once you have filed a return of income, AO is required to issue you a notice under section 143(2) of the Act. Such notice, if not issued, then the entire reassessment proceeding is again bad in law. Also, you are allowed to revise your return of income because all provisions of the Act apply. As if it is a return filed under 139, you can revise your return, but you cannot claim a higher relief than what you have received in the original assessment. These are the time limits for reopening of the assessment. There is a time limit of 16 years to reopen the assessment in case if the income is in relation to any foreign asset. This was recently introduced in 2012. Apart from that exception, the maximum time limit to reopen the assessment is 6 years. If your income chargeable to taxes escaping assessment is more than 1 lakh rupees and it is not more than 1 lakh rupees, then the maximum time available to the assessing officer is 4 years from the end of the relevant assessment. This time limit of 6 years to reopen the assessment is subject to the first proviso. Therefore, if there is no failure on the part of the assessing to disclose fully and truly all material facts, though time limit available under 149 is 6 years. AO cannot reopen the assessment beyond 4 years if there is no failure. Mind you, for the assessment year 13-14, the last day for issuing the notice under section 148 was 31st March 2020, but because of this coronavirus assessment year 13-14, the reassessment can be opened by issuing a notice up to 30th June 2020. This time limit under section 149 will not apply to cases which are prescribed under section 140. Just to give an example, assessee has transferred his property in the assessment year 12-13. In that year, he has not offered to tax any capital gain. Assessing officer finds out that assessee has received consideration for this transfer in assessment year 15-16, and he taxes the capital gain in the assessment year 15-16. Transfer has taken place in assessment year 12-13, but AO has taxed capital gain in the assessment year 15-16. Assessee challenges this addition before the CIT appeal and before the tribunal. Tribunal holds that this capital gain has to be taxed in the assessment year 12-13. However, tribunal order comes in the year 2021. Say for example, 1st April 2021. Tribunal order states that this capital gain should be taxed in the year 12-13. Now what happens is, on 1st April 2021, time limit to reopen the assessment for the assessment year 12-13 has already expired. Therefore, in such cases, department stands to lose, and therefore this provision section 150, which says that notice under section 148 may be issued at any time for the purpose of making an assessment or reassessment in consequence of or to give effect to any finding or direction contained in an order passed by any authority in any proceeding under this act by way of appeal, reference, or revision, or by court in any proceeding under any other law. So, if your tribunal order contains a direction or a finding that this income has to be taxed for assessment year 12-13, then the AO, even if the time of 6 years expired, can reopen the assessment. So this is the safeguard which is there in section 150. Of course, there is no unlimited time limit even under this section, because say for example, if this capital gain was chargeable to tax in assessment year 5-6, and if the tribunal gives a finding in 21 that this capital gain belongs to assessment year 5-6, not assessment year 15-16, in 21, and 16 or 15 years are elapsed, in such cases there is a time limit which is there in the subsequent paragraph, which says that the above provision shall not apply in any case where any such assessment, reassessment, or recomputation as referred to in that subsection relates to an assessment year in respect of which assessment, reassessment, or recomputation could not have been made at the time the order which was subject matter of appeal, reference, revision as the case may be was made by the reason of any other provision limiting the time within which any action for assessment, reassessment, or recomputation may be taken. So at the time of passing the assessment order of 15-16, if reassessment of AY 5-6 was otherwise permissible, then in 21 the AO can reopen the assessment. However, the time of passing the assessment order in AY 15-16, if AY 5-6 reassessment was already time barred, no reassessment can be. Another important safeguard contained in this bunch of section is section 151, which requires sanction from a higher authority. After 1/6/2015, to reopen an assessment beyond a period of 4 years from the end of relevant assessment year, sanction of principal commissioner or commissioner is required, and if it is within 4 years, sanction of joint commissioner is required. Now, what do you mean by sanction? While granting sanction, the sanctioning authority, that is either the principal commissioner, chief commissioner, or joint commissioner, etc., he has to go through the reasons recorded, go through the record, has to apply his mind, and then he has to give a section that yes, in my opinion, this is a fit case for reopening the assessment. Prior to 1/6/2015, this was a scheme of granting of sanction. In this case, the courts have given various propositions. Firstly, if sanction is to be given by joint commissioner, but it is given by principal commissioner or vice versa, it is not valid in law. Bombay High Court has held that if a particular job is to be done by one officer, only he has to do that particular job. His job cannot be performed either by his superior officer or by a person who is not superior to him. Similarly, there has to be a application of mind. Mechanical satisfaction is not required. Mere writing of the word yes, I am satisfied would not be sufficient. And if sanction is based on wrong facts or non-existent reason, it is not a valid sanction. So what happened in one of the cases, for getting sanction of the sanctioning authority, they have a particular form.
काय
In that,
नाही शेतात बितात जायचं
in that form, they have to give various
नाही आता घरी
details. For example, assessment year. For example, if there is any prior assessment, if there is any prior assessment, then why reassessment is required, etc. etc. If these details are not correct, then the court has held that the reassessment proceeding or sanction is based on non-existent fact or wrong facts is not permissible in law. So in one of my case, the detail asked was whether assessee has filed his return of income. Answer was no. If no, whether any original assessment has taken place, the answer was no. Whereas in factually, assessee had filed his return of income and his original assessment had taken place. These are very, very important facts. Based on such facts, court held that reassessment proceeding is bad in law because the sanction which has been granted by the sanctioning authority is based on a non-existent sanction, non-existent fact or wrong fact. Section 152 is a very simple section. It has to be, if you're reopening an assessment of an earlier assessment year, then that income has to be charged to tax at the very same rate. Time limit to pass an assessment order, reassessment order, is 9 months. However, with effect from 1st of April 2019, this time limit has been increased to 12 months. So these are the various provisions of the Income Tax Act dealing with the reassessment proceeding. You have seen that each section has a particular condition, prerequisite or essential requirement. If that particular section is not strictly followed, the conditions are not strictly complied with, in that case, the court has held that the reassessment proceeding is bad in law. Therefore, when a reassessment case is there before you, you have to verify whether all the prerequisite jurisdictional requirements are complied with, whether the principal commissioner has granted sanction, the sanction is based on correct facts, the reason records correct facts. Sometimes you find that in the reasons recorded, the AO writes wrong facts. The AO will state that the assessee for this year has not filed in return of income, or he states that the assessee has filed return of income, but he has shown so much income, whereas you have shown a higher or lesser income. The figure is incorrect. So number of factual inconsistencies there in the reasons recorded, which demonstrates non-application of mind. There may be no failure on your part. There may be change of opinion. There may be no new tangible material. In all such case, the courts have held that reassessment is not good in law and have quashed such reassessment proceeding. Therefore, see, many times what happens is the reassessment assessee is generally caught on a bad foot. So if the assessing officer has got information from an investigation wing that the assessee has secured bogus unsecured loan from Mr. Praveen Kumar Jain, generally this is a very bad case on merits because the department is in possession of statement of Mr. Praveen Kumar Jain, which is sufficient to make addition in your hand. In such case, if you don't have good case on merits, it is very important to find out loopholes in your reassessment proceedings, the loopholes in the technical requirement or satisfaction or the conditions which are required to be fulfilled. And if you find a loophole that is sufficient to quash the reassessment proceeding, in spite of the fact that on merits your case is not very good. So this is the basic law of reassessment. Now let us understand some of the procedural requirement which one has to follow in the case of reassessment under the Income Tax Act. Now this procedural requirement, some are coming out from the provisions of the Income Tax Act, whereas some are laid down by the courts. So what are the conditions? What are the procedures which are supposed to be followed? Firstly, before any reassessment proceeding, AO has to record his reason for reopening the assessment. This reason has to be recorded in your proceeding sheet. After recording the reason, AO has to obtain a sanction under 151, either joint commissioner or principal commissioner. Once the sanction has been obtained, AO has to issue notice under 148 of the Income Tax Act. There is a time limit to issue notice. We have already seen that. The next step is, once you receive the notice, you are required to file your return of income in response to such notice. In earlier days, we used to just write a letter to the officer that the return of income originally filed should be treated as return filed in response to the notice under 148. But nowadays, the officer insists that you file return of income through e-mode, e-filing mode. So yes, once you receive the notice, you have to file your return of income, and generally you have to file such return of income within a period of 30 days from receipt of the notice. Once you file your return of income, you have to request for the reasons of reopening the assessment. AO is duty bound to provide you the reasons. Once you receive the reasons, you have to file objections for the reopening of the assessments to the AO. That in the objections you may write that jurisdictional requirements are not fulfilled, there is no income which has escaped assessment, or there is no failure on my part, this amounts to change of opinion, the notice is time barred, etc. Whatever grounds or whatever reasons you are having to say the reassessment proceeding is bad in law, please mention in your objection filed to the AO. Once AO has received these objections, AO is supposed to dispose of the objections by a separate return and reasoned order. He has to give reason for each of our objection, and he has to pass an order stating that objections are not valid and the reassessment proceeding is valid. Once that order disposing of the objection is received, assessee has an option to file a writ petition before the High Court challenging the jurisdiction under 147 of the Income Tax Act. So directly you can approach the High Court. You can say that jurisdictional conditions are not satisfied and therefore the reassessment proceedings are bad in law. Generally, if your case on the jurisdictional ground is quite good, and if you don't want to go through the assessment proceedings, if you don't want to make payment of 20% of the tax which generally arises after the assessment order has been passed, in such case it is advisable to file a writ petition and get the reassessment proceeding quashed by the High Court. However, if you don't challenge it, then you can continue with the assessment proceeding with the assessing officer. After waiting for 4 weeks from the date of disposing of the order, AO can continue with the reassessment proceeding. He has to issue notice under 143(2) of the Act. He has to issue notice under 142(1) of the Act, call for details, follow the principle of natural justice, and complete the assessment. Once the assessment is completed, you have the remedy of filing an appeal to the CIT appeal. In such appeal, you can challenge both the reassessment validity as well as the additions on merit. So these are the steps which one has to follow. Suppose there is some mistake on the assessing officer side, he fails to follow one of the steps, then the courts have held that the reassessment proceeding is bad in law. Let us have a look at those cases. This procedure was laid down by Supreme Court in case of GK and Driveshaft 259 ITR 19, that you have to ask for reasons, he has to supply reasons, you have to file objections, he has to pass an order disposing of objections. Once that order is passed, you can challenge it. Similar finding is given by Gujarat High Court. Gujarat High Court has laid down time limit that you have to file return within 30 days. After filing the return, he has to supply reasons within 30 days. you can file objection within 60 days, and you can dispose of the objection within 4 months, so as to ensure that everybody has sufficient time limit. The Bombay High Court in Asian Paints has held that once the order disposing of objection has been passed, AO has to wait for 4 weeks before proceeding with the assessment proceeding, because assessee has the option of going to High Court. Therefore, if he completes the assessment, assessee cannot go to High Court, and therefore the High Court has held that wait for 4 weeks. If he wants to approach the High Court, he can approach. Otherwise, you can continue the proceeding. Now, if these procedural aspects are not satisfied by the assessing officer, still the courts have held that reassessment can be quashed. For example, if prior to issue of notice, reasons are not recorded, then the Bombay High Court has held that such reassessment is bad in law. Similarly, if in spite of asking for reasons, assessing officer has not supplied reasons, court has held that such reassessment is bad in law. If you have filed objections but AO has not disposed of the objections, again the assessment has been held to be bad in law. So in some cases the court has set aside the assessment to the AO to dispose of the objection. In other cases the court has quashed the entire reassessment proceeding. If the assessing officer has passed the reassessment order within the 4 weeks, we have seen the Asian Paint judgment, Bombay High Court has held that he should not proceed within 4 weeks. So if he proceeds within 4 weeks and passes the order, then the Bombay High Court has held that such a reassessment order passed within 4 weeks has to be quashed. Now, it is very important to note that against the reassessment proceeding, you have to file an objection to the officer objecting to the reassessment proceeding. If you don't file the objections, there is one big issue whether can you raise the question of validity of reassessment proceeding before the CIT appeal. Since you are not objecting at the assessment stage, the department can argue that you have accepted that a reassessment proceeding is good in law. However, the courts have held that in spite of not filing any objection at the assessment proceeding, I can very well challenge the reassessment proceeding at the appellate stage, the validity of reassessment proceeding at the appellate stage, though there are some judgments which are against the SSE, wherein they have held that if you don't object at the time of assessment, then you cannot object in the appellate proceeding. Yes, so this is insofar as the procedure is concerned. Come to the other issues. There are some other issues which you should bear in mind in respect of reassessment proceeding. Firstly, a reassessment proceeding is for the benefit of department, income tax department of the revenue, and therefore in this reassessment proceeding, when you are supposed to file a return in response to the 148 notice, you cannot take or make a claim which was not earlier made and which results into reduction of your income. Supreme Court in case of Sun Engineering has held that this proceeding is for the benefit of revenue and the assessee cannot be allowed to make a claim which is beneficial to the assessee and detrimental to the revenue. So in this case, this proceeding can only benefit the revenue and not the assessee. If the reassessment proceeding you challenge it in an appeal to the CIT appeal and then to tribunal, and then tribunal remands back that the reassessment proceeding to the assessing officer, saying that assessment has not been done in a correct manner, you have to do it in correct manner, provide opportunity of cross-examination, then in such case, in such a remanded matter, AO cannot go into any other issue. What powers does a principal commissioner have to revise this reassessment order? Can a reassessment order under section 148 be revised by the principal commissioner by resorting to section 263 is the question. Now this is a very typical question. So what happens is you have an original 143.3 assessment and you have a 148 assessment. There are two assessment orders. 148 assessment, he has only dealt with some of the issues, not all the issues. So the issue which arose before the court was, can a principal commissioner revise a reassessment order to raise an altogether different issue is the issue. Now what happens under 263, there's a time limit of 2 years to revise an assessment from the end of the month in which year in which the order has been passed. So 143.3 order is passed, say for example 4 years back. That cannot be revised, time has lapsed. Therefore, the CIT will try to revise your 148 order. However, if a particular issue was not a subject matter of your reassessment proceeding, then the courts have held that you cannot revise the 148 order. You should have revised the original assessment order. And since the time limit has lapsed, 263 is bad in law. In my opinion, 263 in case of 148 is not valid or proper. Reason being, if a particular issue has not been dealt with in the 148 order, then the court has held that you have to revise the original assessment, not the 148 assessment. But if the particular issue has been dealt with in the 148 order, then we can very well argue in the 263 case that AO has applied his mind and there cannot be any revision because the order is not erroneous. And therefore, 263 in case of a reassessment order is a very difficult thing in my view. Again, you can revise the order under section 264. However, that revision can not be for the benefit of the SSC. And therefore, only if in respect of the reassessment issue, if you find any problem, you can approach commissioner under section 264, but you cannot make a new claim altogether in the 264 proceeding because of the Sun Engineering judgment. Yes, so this is the presentation from my side. I hope if we have any doubts or issues, we can take that.
Yeah, so Dharan, Umesh here.
Yes,
I
yes.
think we have enough time. So if you can throw some light on change of opinion.
Hmm.
For instance, 143.3 has already been done,
Hmm.
right? And we discussed briefly about the change of opinion, etc.
Hmm.
But take a case where you have a 143.3 done, but the matter for which reopening is done,
Hmm.
that matter is not dealt with in the order per se, in the assessment order.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, so assuming it is a 68 case, a 68 matter, or any addition for that matter, bogus purchase, whatever.
Hmm.
It was
Hmm.
not dealt with in the order per se, but as far as SSC is concerned, all the details were provided, all the details are there.
Hmm.
So how do you take this as a change of opinion matter versus information from investigation wing or maybe VAT department, as the case may be?
Hmm. Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So for change of opinion, for that argument to help you, you have to first demonstrate that AO has already formed an opinion in the course of original assessment proceeding. If AO has already applied his mind, then there arises a case of change of opinion. The first thing is to demonstrate that whether AO has raised any inquiry during the course of original assessment proceeding and whether he has applied his mind. If you have made a return submission, in spite of the fact that there is no discussion in the assessment order, generally if the AO agrees with your contention, he will never write anything in the assessment order. Only if he is not agreeing with you, he'll make adjustment and he'll make a mention in the assessment order. Otherwise, you will not find anything in the assessment order. Just because nothing is written in the assessment order does not mean he has not applied his mind. If he has raised a query, you have replied, and he has taken into account that reply. However, if he has received a fresh information from some other department, then the argument of change of opinion becomes very difficult. If some fresh information is received which demonstrate falsity of facts, then the argument of change of opinion will become very difficult.
Okay. So there is a question from Tejas Soda. Please share where addition is done on the basis of statement given by other party with investigation wing.
Hmm.
The other party has retracted his statement.
Hmm. So what I'm supposed, please share whether
Yeah, so can the addition be made on this case where the statement is retracted by the other party?
So there are two aspects. One is can he reopen the assessment? And the second part is once he has reopened, can he make the addition? Insofar as the reopening of assessment is concerned, if there is a valid statement recorded, then he can reopen the assessment. But insofar as the addition is concerned, if the statement is already retracted, then it will be difficult for them to make the addition.
Cases, they are going ahead with the statement which was recorded earlier.
With the record, and they are not acknowledging the retraction, correct?
Yeah, retraction letters are filed by us. The other party has retracted, but they are not considered. They have already added in three cases.
My suggestion would be twofold. One, you say that the statement has been retracted, therefore the original statement has no validity. And if you are not accepting this retracted statement, then please provide opportunity of cross-examination.
Noted.
And if still they are not providing opportunity of cross-examination, then the assessment is bad in law. This has been held by a Supreme Court in case of Andaman Timber and the Bombay High Court in case of HR method. That a non-providing opportunity to cross-examination goes to the very root of the matter and quashes the assessment first.
Understood.
Yes. There is one query from Mr. Manish Peswani, whether assessment can be reopened on the basis of change in legal position on account of retrospective amendment in law. Generally, retrospective amendment in law also comes with a rider that there cannot be any reopening on the basis of retrospective amendment in law. Only if an assessment is going on and appellate proceeding is going on, that retrospective amendment can be used. It cannot be reopened. It cannot be used to reopen an assessment proceeding. Generally, it comes with a rider. If it does not come with a rider, maybe a good case to argue that they cannot reopen the assessment, though nothing stops them from reopening the assessment. Mr. Bandish Shet, investigation wing statement on unsecured loan, like you said in Praveen Jain. Is it our responsibility to produce Mr. Praveen Jain? Our responsibility is to produce a confirmation from the company or the entities from which we have taken unsecured loan, or to produce an affidavit of the director. But it is the responsibility of the department to produce Mr. Praveen Jain, because they are relying on the Mr. Praveen Jain's statement. So it is their responsibility to produce. You have to ask for cross-examination. If they are unable to produce the party for cross-examination, then they cannot rely on statement of Mr. Praveen Jain. Mr. Vishal, if order is passed under 144C13, whether assessment can be done under section 263, as in 144C13 has been passed after direction, which is a collegium of 3 principal. Technical issue, no judgments I think on this issue aspect, but it appears that they can initiate 263 proceedings in respect of an order passed after the DRP direction. Unfair, but still there is no judgment in this respect. Therefore, they can revise the final assessment order.
Because finally the assessment order is passed by the AO only. So
Assessing officer,
technically, yes, they can do that.
they can do.
Yeah.
So,
Any other questions?
hi. Continuing the same question. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, we shall go ahead.
Yeah. So for 144C13, if the order has been passed after the direction of DRP, so whether in 263, after the receipt of 263, AO passes the order, whether he can pass the order challenging the order already passed under section 92 CA, like whether 263 gives power to challenge the order of 92 CA.
The transfer pricing order. The transfer pricing order by the transfer pricing officer.
in 263, the principal, yes. So in if principal commissioner, if under 263, we have, for example, one issue which is related to transfer pricing. So whether a jurisdictional AO can pass order under 143.3, read with section 263 without referring to section 92 CA transfer pricing officer.
Yeah, as per the provisions of the Income Tax Act, it is required to refer the matter to transfer pricing officer, then he cannot pass the order.
Okay, so that can be challenged.
But one point
Ground
here
can be
is
challenged.
that now there is no as such requirement of referral to the transfer pricing officer. There is no threshold, etc. So that point is also to be considered while challenging this ground.
Correct.
It
If this
belongs to
pertains to an
assessment
old
year
assessment,
11, 12 and 12, 13.
so if this pertains to old assessment year, you have to verify the guidelines for that year. There was a particular threshold limit to refer it to transfer pricing officer. If that is still there
Correct.
and he has not referred, then you can very well challenge.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Dharan,
Thank you.
just one thing, again, now that we have some time, we can also dwell upon NDTV as we were just discussing offline. NDTV says that the primary onus is on the assessee to disclose the primary facts. But it nowhere discusses or it nowhere defines what do you mean by primary facts and what do you mean by secondary facts. So effectively, it has opened a Pandora's box in terms of what is a primary fact or what do you mean by the secondary fact. So say for example, again,
Yes.
Just an example, like it is a matter of share premium 5627B issue, and I at the time of original assessment, the details were already been submitted in terms of the valuation, in terms of the valuation report, the balance sheet, the details of the investor, etc. Now in the investigation wing, the matter has been raised and they say that the valuation is incorrect because the figures are inflated, actual numbers are inflated, right? Based on this, the again I am applying NDTV to this very fact, and as an assessee, the ground that I would take is I have disclosed all the primary facts. So this investigation wing going on to the actual figures is a secondary fact.
Correct.
So how do you see this as primary versus secondary?
Okay. So first we'll discuss NDTV's case. The primary facts there, as we already discussed, is that during the course of assessment proceeding, the fact that a group concern or sister concern had received share application money was in the knowledge of the officer. The fact that assessee had given corporate guarantee was in the knowledge of the assessing officer, and they had in fact made a transfer pricing adjustment to add some income in respect of corporate guarantee fees. So all these facts were within the knowledge of the officer. They had received a fresh information, or they had in the subsequent assessment year found out that this share application money which the sister concern had received, the share application money is nothing but a circular routing of the fund, and this fund belongs to the assessee company. In fact, they had also received some complaints from the shareholders of the assessee company regarding this
Minority
circular routing of the fund. Yes. And based on these reasons, the reassessment proceeding was initiated. This was beyond 4 years, and therefore the failure to disclose that condition kicked in. The court held that, firstly, insofar as the primary facts are concerned, the assessee had already disclosed, or the officer was already aware that the group concern had received share application money. Necessary evidence in this regard was filed, and in fact the assessing officer had made a corporate guarantee adjustment. Actually, the facts were the group company had no business per se, and only on the basis of corporate guarantee issued by the assessee, that the group company received the share application money. So these
Yeah.
facts were within the knowledge of the assessing officer. Court held that you have sufficiently disclosed. Based on this fact, AO could have drawn an adverse inference at that point of time, and therefore, merely because AO did not do that, the assessee cannot be penalized. One important fact to be noted in this regard is, if fresh information of circular routing in the form of complaints from the minority shareholder was ignored by the Supreme Court on the ground that that information was never shared with the assessee either before the High Court proceeding or before the Supreme Court. Since this is a new fact, not disclosed to the assessee, no chance given to assessee to rebut this fact, therefore we are ignoring this information. Thus, the new information was completely ignored, and based on the old information, court held that there is no failure to disclose. What will happen if there is a fresh information which exposes the falsity of the old facts is something which has not been dealt with by the Supreme Court. So today, if there is an information from the investigation wing or from some other party, and that information demonstrates or gives reasons to show that the old facts are false, then Supreme Court NDTV judgment will not come to a rescue. Then the Bombay High Court and the Gujarat High Court has held that information from the investigation wing which exposes the falsity does not let first prosecutor section 147 come into picture. Now, Vyumesh, by coming to your facts, there is a direct Mumbai tribunal. I am on the merits firstly. There is a direct Mumbai tribunal judgment on the identical facts where, based on the actual figures, 5627B was tried to rope in after expiry of 4-5 years, challenging the valuation, and the court has held that you cannot do it because this is an estimation. This is what the method requires, and if we have at that point of time reasonable belief that the estimations were correct, today based on actual figures you cannot work out, do a reverse work. This is a direct Mumbai tribunal judgment. And now coming to the part of failure to disclose, if during the original assessment,
Red Chillies or Shah Rukh Khan?
no, there is some other judgment. Mumbai tribunal.
Okay.
I'll share the citation with you.
Yeah, sure.
Coming to the failure part, if during the original assessment proceeding, the issue of share capital was subject matter of scrutiny by the assessing officer had inquired into the value at which you are issuing shares. You had in fact shared the valuation report. This is the end of the matter. You have disclosed the primary facts. Once the valuation report is produced before the assessing officer, that is a sufficient disclosure from your side. After visiting the valuation report, if the assessing officer feels that this valuation is based on wrong estimation, then he could have drawn the inference at that point of time. But today, after 5 years, after taking into consideration the actual figures, he cannot say there was a failure to disclose at that point of time, because at that point of time, whatever was to be disclosed by the assessee was already disclosed. There is nothing which the assessee could have disclosed is not disclosed.
Precisely.
Umesh bhai,
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, can I speak, Umesh bhai?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think NDTV also, they have said it is, they have not gone actually, at the end, they have not gone into the merits, and they have said still department can issue 148 saying that that you are not, means they have found out a technical fault in the notice. They have not actually gone into the merits, na?
That is the
They have
second
said,
part.
yeah. Still
Beyond
that
6
case
years,
is open.
up to 60.
Yeah.
Yes, Shekhar bhai, can I respond?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dharan, go ahead.
So there was another issue before the Supreme Court in case of NDTV. They had tried to invoke the second proviso to section 147, which allows an assessing officer to reopen the assessment beyond 6 years up to 16 years if the income is in respect of any financial or foreign income or foreign interest, foreign asset.
Yeah.
So in that context, when that 16 years clause is invoked, then failure to disclose condition is not kicked in. only when 6 years clause is invoked that failure condition is kicked in. So for that 16 years, Supreme Court has held that nowhere in the notice or nowhere in the reasons recorded it is coming out that you are relying upon this proviso. Therefore, today at this stage you cannot rely upon second proviso. So on this ground, if you want to reopen, you can issue a fresh notice as per law, but this notice is to be quashed.
Yeah. Yeah, sir. Perfect.
I think we have no other questions. So, Ankit, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Yomesh bhai. Thank you, Dharan bhai. It was a very great session. I request Yomesh bhai to please propose a vote of thanks to our today's speaker, Dharan bhai.
Okay. Thank you, Ankit. So, Dharan is a very good friend of mine, and we are working together since long now. I think 4 or 5 years we have been knowing each other. So I once again thank Dharan for accepting my request and coming over in the lockdown situation and guiding the participants on reassessment proceedings and the practical aspects along with the judicial precedents. It was a very good session, Dharan, and you covered all the practical aspects along with the law as well as the judicial precedents. So on behalf of Kalyan Dombili branch and all the participants, I offer a hearty vote of thanks to you for sparing your time and efforts for today's session. Thank you, Dharan.
Thank you so much, Ramesh bhai. Thank you so much, Kalyan and Dombili branch, Ankit bhai and Mayur bhai. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So we end this meeting, Ankit. Any
Yes,
announcements?
yes.
Yeah.
No further announcements.
Okay. Thank you. We have a session tomorrow on appellate proceedings, representation before appellate authorities. We'll assemble again tomorrow same time. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dharan.